Hey, what's up, guys? Out here with the new Pursuit. It's going to be the new edition of Retired Cruisers Club. This is going to be a 2016 all-wheel drive V8. And as most of you know, Dodge messed up my last one and it caught fire. Then the fire department came and put the fire out, so everything was fire damage and water damage, which means we're kind of starting from scratch, having to replace nearly everything, which a lot of stuff was outdated anyway. So this is going to be the new blueprint for the, or rather our starting point for the new HellCop Project. We're doing a lot of visual stuff. We're doing some performance things. I haven't decided what to do with the motor just yet. I could supercharge it. I could do some minor work. I'm definitely going to do a cold air. We have a performance shop here that I could drop about 16,000 into to be pushing 150 horses more than a Hellcat. I don't know if I want to do that. We'll see as we work on this overtime. But just to start off, I get a lot of questions about what the difference is between the Pursuit versus like a regular RT, and the things to look for when you're looking at buying a used police vehicle. So I'm going to take the time to go through all that right now. Most of the stuff is common knowledge among pretty much anybody that owns these things. So this is for the people that are new to buying used police cars and Charger Pursuits. I actually had to make a list because it's significantly longer than I expected. I want to make sure I get everything. So of course the obvious things, the difference between the RT and say the Pursuit and say like the RT will be the black grille. I think the standard grille is typically chrome in the middle, so we got the black grille. Also, normally there's no badging. The Dodge badge is actually new to me on a Pursuit. All my other Pursuits didn't have the badging in the front at all. The rear would only have the model but not the submodel. Still sick. So it's got Charger all-wheel drive, but there's typically not a submodel. It's a frequent thing I've seen with the Interceptors. You know, the Ford Interceptor was the Crown Vic until 2012, and in 2013 the Taurus took over. A lot of times people think that it's up badged to say Police Interceptor. Even police officers have pulled over people for driving the Interceptors and sometimes accusing them of impersonation, because it literally says Police Interceptor, but that's a factory badge from Ford. It comes like that. It's a Ford Police Interceptor. The Charger's a Charger Pursuit. They just don't come badged Pursuit, so typically they don't have badges. The other thing would be no fog lights. So typically the Pursuit doesn't come with fog lights. Now, as a heads up for anybody that wants to put fog lights on, you can. I'm going to give you a warning. I've done it before. I did it with my 2012. Now, it's already wired for the fog lights. You just have to change the housing in the bulb. I thought it was going to be that simple, and it wasn't. Bought the kit at the time, 2016, when I bought my 2012. I bought the kit. It was like $30. Just changed the housing, which comes with the bulb, and the bulb plugged into the factory harnesses in the car, and I couldn't figure out how to turn it on. So I Googled that and found out that the switch that comes in the car does not have the fog light setting. So I had to go to Dodge and buy the switch, which was like another $85. And that was I thought that was plug and play. Pop the old switch out, change the wire, pop it back in, still wouldn't turn on because it's not activated in the computer. So then I had to take it to Dodge and pay them some obscene amount of money. It was like $120 or something like that to just plug it in the OBD and activate it in the computer. So what I thought was going to be a $30 simple project ended up being almost $200 after everything was said and done. So if you want to add fog lights, you can, but bear in mind that you will have to buy the fog light switch for the car and have it activated in the computer. The rims and wheels, you have the steel wheels, which is this is the one that comes on the all-wheel drive. The rear-wheel drives are a little different. You have the steel wheels, and you have two options on the caps. Happen to have one in the car because I switched them already. These are the full-size wheel covers. The ones that actually came on the car, wanted the center cap, so I swapped them. Of course, that's easy, but be warned that they take 2 different sets of lugs. So if you want to swap from one to the other, you can't just buy the center caps. You have to actually buy the lugs as well. Now, since it came with these full-size wheel covers on there, these rims are probably have never been cleaned in the last 7 years. So I'm actually have to get some degreaser and get that off. But that's not too big of a deal. Just another forewarning. Now, the not so obvious things that I found out through just conversations with Dodge Fleet, as well as the upfitters that I normally deal with, the Pursuit actually has a heavier suspension than the regular RTs. They also have heavier brakes. That's something to be watchful of when you get your brakes done. I've had AutoZone sell me the wrong brake pads because they assumed that the RT brakes would fit because they assumed it was the same car, and it's not. So we actually took all 4 wheels off the car, had it on cinder blocks, and then the brake pads wouldn't fit. Look at another car to be able to go down there and get a new set of brake pads, or swap them out to get the right brake pads. So make sure you get the right brake pads. Just FYI, these were the proper brake pads. $200 for the front and rear put together. The next difference is these actually have a larger alternator in the V8 or the Pursuit with the V6 compared. The V8s and all the Pursuits have a 220 amp alternator, whereas the V6 civilian model has I want to say it's a 160 or 180 amp alternator. The V6 Pursuit has the same 220 amp alternator to be able to handle the extra power drain of all the equipment. These also have an upfitter's wiring harness in the front and rear of the car. Apparently, when we got our RT upfitted, it required a whole bunch of extra wiring because they had to run wires through the firewall and through the car to compensate for the fact that these don't have the upfitter's wiring harness in the front and rear of the car. The headlights and tail lights flash factory. I don't know where the wire is. I get that question a lot. I don't actually do the upfitting myself, so I couldn't tell you, but I do know that the headlights and tail lights will flash on a factory flasher built into the car, whereas with the RT that we had to install a flasher module. The all-wheel drive option, I've been told, is not available in the civilian V8. I don't know how true that is. I know when I've pulled up, when I've looked for parts and pull up the list of the models, the V8 wasn't available in the other options, so maybe that's true. But apparently, if you're looking at a V8, you can't get the all-wheel drive, or you can't get the RT in an all-wheel drive, supposedly. When we go into more of the obvious differences in the interior, my trunk and car and everything is completely full of all the crap that has to be installed in this thing. This trunk liner here actually snatched out of an RT. This is my 4th Pursuit. None of them came with this liner. They typically don't come with that plastic piece either, and they normally don't come with the bottom liner either. So if you want that, it's something you'll have to pick up from another car or order it. Just something else to be aware of. The floor is rubber. Typically have that rubber floor, which is great because I've actually had someone spill a 52-ounce drink in the back of mine, and it all just sat there. Just threw a towel in it, soaked it up. Wasn't a big deal compared to dealing with carpet. So I do prefer the rubber floors, and much easier to keep clean, especially if you're in and out of it a lot or tracking things in and out the car. The rear doors, something else people ask about a lot. Now, these rear doors were inoperable, but they did have the handle. This is the first one I got that was inoperable but had the handle. So if it has the handle and the handle doesn't work, which at the time it didn't, it's just because the wire was in the door disconnected. But normally, if they don't have the handle at all, then all the parts inside the door to make it work are actually not there. You have to get what's called a rear door op kit, which when the last time I had to buy one was about it was like $150 for the entire set for both doors, and had to actually pull the door apart and install all the parts necessary to get the rear doors working. Now we take it in the car. So the Pursuit, as far as I've seen, they pretty much always come with the 4.3-inch screen. They do have the option only in the Pursuit model for a 12.1-inch touchscreen, but it has to come like that from the factory. It's not something that can be bought and installed aftermarket because it's part of the wiring harness and has to be wired through the car or something like that. I've actually had a long conversation with Dodge Fleet trying to figure out if I can upgrade to that. Apparently it's not a thing. So if you find one with the 12.1-inch touchscreen, great. But if you don't, it's just I think it can be done for like $7,000 or something like that. If you can find the kit, which you can't. You'd have to have it ripped out of another car. Not even worth it. Just FYI. Another one of the things about the Pursuit model specifically, the trunk switch here is actually not hot when the car is turned off compared to the RT. I like that personally because it means the car is more secure. Somebody breaks in the car and they can't get into the trunk. The button on the trunk doesn't work. This one won't work with the car turned off. And typically, for most of the Pursuits I've seen, the back of the seat has a steel panel that's actually screwed down, so you couldn't just pop a switch and lay the seat down like you can with most cars get into the trunk. Another one of the features apparently that's exclusive to the Pursuit model are these switches here. Focus. Those two switches there. What that will do is black out all the interior lighting and dim your main gauge. See, it blacked all that stuff out and just dim the center gauge. And my TPMS light is flashing that it's not registering one wheel. So that's something I have to have looked at. I'll take it by any tire spot. I've been told they should be able to check it and reprogram it if necessary. So you got those blackout switches. I've actually scrolled those same switches in the RTs and the other models, and they don't do the same thing. So you have the floor down there, which I've already changed the light to red. The floor, the center, the dash. It'll shut all that off, black out your interior. Of course, you got the fact that it's a column shifter compared to a center shifter. Most of them don't have the map lights, which would normally be right here. If you have the street appearance package, they'll come with the map lights here, but typically they don't. And then they come standard with the red and white dome light. The reason for that is because white light doesn't kill your night vision. Red light doesn't kill your night vision. So if you're operating at night at all for any reason, you use the red light, so it's easier to see. It takes your eyes like a half hour to readjust to complete darkness if you've been in white light. That's the reason why they use red lights in cockpits of planes and aircraft and whatnot. And the last thing I'm going to mention while we're in here is a secure park feature. I believe they started doing that in 2015, and I do not understand for the life of me how you see these videos of police letting their cars get stolen. Use a secure park. That should never happen. There's a button behind the steering wheel, puts it in secure park. The car will not go and drive. The fob is outside the car. Take it out carefully. Key fob not detected. Can't put in drive. Actually cannot take it out of secure park without the fob. Prevent your car from getting stolen. Apparently I've got a faulty tail light. I've already replaced it. It's brand new, so maybe the brand new one is faulty, just tripping that sensor every time I take my foot off the brake. Keys back in the car, off secure park. Now even with it in drive, the car's moving forward. Press secure park, and then I could stop and throw it into park and it's already locked in. Alright, so a lot of questions about what to look for when you're buying one of these. One of the first things I'd say is, of course, the paint. The paint and the decals. I've got a lot of these scratches. I'm probably just going to replace this hood entirely. I'm going to be going with a cold air intake, so I might just get a vented hood. An actual, like, ram vented hood, not one with fake hood scoops that people use for some reason. They generally have scratches around here, and I'm assuming that's from duty belts or closing in with your hips. Now, one of the big things about these is decals. Can't really see it. You can kind of see it there. If you can see it on the camera, that's a 6-point star. So clearly there was a decal there. And you can see here in the light, it says Franklin County. There's no residue on this. These decals are properly removed. But once you have decals on the car, it sits in the sun long enough, the paint just kind of fades around it. So that's something you might want to watch out for, because if there's no residue there, you might just have to deal with those words or have the car repainted. I mean, I'm going to buff it. That's the first thing I'm going to try to do is just buff it, see if it's just in the clear coat or something, but we'll see. It's one first thing to be aware of. Of course, along with that, there are holes and light bar marks. I've only got one actual hole in this car. It's right here. It's been plugged. Now, if you want to get that fixed, it's about $700 just to get that fixed. If you want to have it done right, where it's actually repaired and repainted properly to match the car. Same thing up here. We've got anchor points from where the light bar used to be. You can see where the feet were here. Something else, I'm probably just going to have it buffed and see if it comes out, because it feels relatively smooth. I can't put my fingernail in it, so we'll see if we can buff that out. But if not, when I had my silver one, my 2012, I had 3 holes in the roof from the light bar and the antenna, and I had these feet marks. It cost me somewhere around $1,400 to get the holes repaired and get the entire roof repainted and painted properly to match the rest of the car. So it wasn't exactly cheap. It was definitely worth it, but it wasn't cheap. So again, just something else to be aware of when you're getting that done, or when you're looking at one of these. Any cracks in the lights? I have here a light that I took out. It's full of water. It wasn't full of water when I bought the car, but that line right here where this plastic meets, you can hear that it's separated right on that line. So apparently, just over time of being in the rain and whatnot, it's actually filled with water. I had to replace that. When I replaced it with the first one, the sensor didn't turn off the sensor, so maybe that new light's faulty. You know, it's brand new. But something to be aware of, because those were $180 each on both sides. Well, $180 for one, $180 for the other. One went bad, the other went bad about a year later. And then the trunk section, brand new, if you buy one brand new, is $700. You're talking about $1,000 worth of tail lights. And when I had one of them, one of the ones we had, this much of it didn't work. That's it, just this much. And State Patrol pulled my guy over and gave him a ticket for the tail light not working, because apparently it is a state law that, quote unquote, every light must be in well-maintained condition. So even though it was only like 2 inches of the entire racetrack that wasn't working, got a tail light ticket. Now, one of the important things I try to find out is what department it came from. The original title actually says what department it came from, and that can tell you a lot about the car in itself. If it's a State Patrol car, probably stay away from it, because they've been jumping curbs, doing pits, running hard every day. Those things go through a lot. If it's a full service sheriff's department, probably the same, potentially the same thing, more or less. One of mine was from a full service sheriff's department, and the suspension was shot. There's all that was doing regular police work on backcountry roads. If it's from a department that's somewhere up north, then you want to check the undercarriage for excessive rust. One of the ones I looked at that came from a northern department, I took it down to Dodge and had them lift it, and he told me that they were looking at least $2,000 worth of damage just from eyeballing it without doing an actual like in-depth breakdown. This one, I'm curious, maybe it was sitting outside of a courthouse or a jail or something on a regular basis, because this came from a sheriff's department, but the fading in the decals, the Franklin County word is only on one side of the car. I can't see it at all in the paint on the other side of the car, so maybe it only got morning sun or something. That's the best I can think of. It's kind of weird. I've never seen that before. So find out what department it came from if you're looking at one, and that may help you determine what type of work that car has been doing and what type of extra potential damage or wear you should be checking for. I get in the car, so I've got an accessory right now, or I've got it in run right now. It's just turned off so I can talk without the engine noise. Check the idle hours. This was the biggest mistake that I made, and I kicked myself in the butt for with the last car, is I know better and I didn't check the idle hours before I bought it. According to a mechanic that I spoke to, or a couple mechanics I spoke to, 1 hour of idling is equal to about 33 miles of driving. So the chassis may be fine, but your alternator, your water pump, your fuel pump, your motor, all that is a lot of extra wear is the idle time. And the last car that I had 9,200 idle hours, which was ridiculous. So things started going bad not long after I got, and I had to replace a lot of stuff. I had to under the hood to get into proper brand new condition. So when you're looking at the idle hours on the dash, if you, for example, find a campus car where all it did was sit around a school day and night and didn't go anywhere, you might find one like that with 20,000 miles on it. But then look at the idle hours. If the idle hours is 15,000 hours, that motor basically has like 500,000 miles of wear on it, which means you want to get an extended warranty or just stay away from it entirely. That is a lot of extra wear. That's going to end up being a lot of work, and you're going to wonder why the car is breaking down so quickly, which is probably why the department got rid of it. So check the idle hours and weigh that against the mileage and the price you're getting the car for. And it's definitely one of the most important things I would say about buying a used police car. Don't just go off the mileage. Definitely check the idle hours on the dash. The Charger counts idle hours. The Crown Vic counts idle hours. The other ones, I'm not sure. A couple warnings about these. Batteries have an average lifespan of about 6 years. So if you get it and it's at least 6 years old and it's obviously been running quite a bit, have the battery and alternator tested. I've had to replace the battery in each one of mine. I just got this one and already had to replace the battery. The battery was completely shot within a couple days of me driving it. So that's the first thing. The next thing is the water pump. Warning sign with the water pump. If you are at idle, just letting the car sit in the parking lot at idle with the AC turned off and your high speed fans keep kicking on, the water pump is going bad. I learned that 2 cars in a row. I had two of my past pursuits, just sitting here at idle and on a cool 65-degree day, AC turned off, high speed fans kept kicking on and turning back off. It's because the water pump was going bad. Also, big thing that I had to learn the hard way, the hoses. Let's see if I can see from here. Yep. These hoses here, that T connection right there, there's 2 of them. There's this one and the one under it. Broke right there. 2 of them. So this one broke when I was on a 2-hour drive to another job, and then after I fixed that one, a few weeks, maybe a month later, that one broke, the one directly under it. And then the next car I got, the same hose broke within maybe 6 months or something like that. So I've been told by a mechanic, one of the mechanics I know, that those are just faulty, they break over time. So that's something I'm going to be replacing ahead of time on this car, like I did with the other ones. I got a set of high performance silicone hoses coming in. You have the return hose here, it goes to the firewall in the back of the motor, and then the sending hose at the bottom of this that goes the other side of the motor, and also the same wall. And then there's that one here and then the other 2 you have to get to from the bottom. But that entire 5 hose kit on Amazon was like $300. I did it myself, which is about due for a drain and fill anyway with this mileage. So let's go ahead and drain all the coolant, replace all the hoses for $300 and refill it and not have that problem. That's something I definitely recommend, just because I've had that issue with more than one car with the exact same hose. So as far as this goes, as far as this project starts, I'm just going to get all the basic maintenance out the way. We're going to change all those hoses, about $300 and an hour of my time or something like that to knock that out. Already put a brand new battery in the car, $200 and something for a platinum battery. Spark plugs. I had to deal with these idiots at AutoZone that had no idea what they were talking about. You need 16 spark plugs for the charger. If I didn't already know that, I'd be walking out there with 8, because he said you needed 8 spark plugs. It's 2 per cylinder, and it's 8 cylinders, and they're $10 to $12 a piece if you get the quality one. So almost $200 worth of spark plugs, which luckily I knew somebody could throw those in there for me for $50. Jiffy Lube quoted me $125 for the labor, so that would have been about about a $330 job, parts and labor included. Brake pads, $200. Already changed the front, got to change the rear, get that out the way. My coolant will be flushed by then. Filters, I'm gonna go with a K&N filter. It's already in. A lot of departments, from what I found out, are bad about changing the cabin air filter. Something else to check is if the car smells bad on the inside. It's probably because a lot of departments actually never change the cabin air filter. That looks absolutely horrible. It's ridiculous. So K&N cabin filter coming in, $45 for the cabin filter, $75 for the regular air filter, and they're reusable. I use the same filters in 3 cars until they burned up and no longer exist in my last car, so I had to reorder them. So that's where we're starting, just getting all the basic maintenance out the way and make sure it's roadworthy. I hope I've covered all the questions in this long video, as far as everybody's been asking what to look for and what the differences are. Other than that, drop a line if any further questions. Later.